Relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this per tweet from Michael Benson. Lee Wood versus Mauricio Lara, to no one's surprise, is reportedly not going to be rescheduled. And Wood is instead going to fight Leo Santa Cruz for the WBA Featherweight World title next, after all. Proposed Santa Cruz versus Ray Vargas unification not happening. I told you guys he wasn't going to revisit that Lara fight. It's too much risk for not enough reward. You know, as a consumer, of course I'm going to be a proponent of the fight. As a consumer, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying from a common sense perspective, a general perspective, there were a lot of risks associated with that Lara fight that weren't warranted, weren't necessarily justified in the business sense for Lee Wood, he's Leo Santa Cruz's mandatory challenger. He's very close to fighting for a full-fledged alphabet title. Now, Leo Santa Cruz, comparatively, compared to Mauricio Lara, he has more of a profile, and in some ways, this is a slightly more winnable fight than the Mauricio Lara fight, mostly because we don't know how Leo Santa Cruz is going to arrive at featherweight, if he will be match fit, even if he makes the weight, because he hasn't had to make the weight in 3 going on 4 years. He might be depleted. Leo Santa Cruz was never that big a puncher at featherweight to begin with. He was more of a volume guy, an activity guy, but not a power guy. In terms of power, I think Mauricio Lara, comparatively, packs a bigger punch than Leo Santa Cruz, even if he's not as experienced or well-known as Leo Santa Cruz. I would actually pick Mauricio Lara to beat Leo Santa Cruz if they were the two guys that were fighting. They're not. It's going to be Lee Wood versus Leo Santa Cruz, and as stated, I think Lee Wood stands a slightly better chance of victory against Leo Santa Cruz than he does Mauricio Lara. He's in grave danger of being stopped in violent fashion by Mauricio Lara, whereas Leo Santa Cruz, with him, he may end up facing a weight drain fighter. He may have that to lean on. Certain particulars in association with this fight. Is it still going to be a 75-25 split the way it was before? Because if it is, Lee Wood doesn't stand to make very much from this fight. What's the split? Who's going to promote the show? Is it going to be the PBC? Will Lee Wood cross over? What happened with Ray Vargas? The plan was to have Ray Vargas and Leo Santa Cruz unify. Why did that fall apart? At a time when there are widespread rumors of a financial crisis over there at the PBC, that Fox, they're not paying for any shows. No production money is coming from them. And over at Showtime, the budget looks pretty tight. They don't really have very many fights on the schedule. They're still struggling to get Crawford versus Spence over the line. With the financial demands of both the fighters, both the champions, both Ray Vargas and Leo Santa Cruz, was it too expensive a show for the PBC to put on based on what the fighters wanted in order to unify? Because you do figure that if you're going to fight in a unification match, you should stand to make something substantial, something more than what you usually make. Did the PBC not want to foot the bill? Showtime. What happened to that fight, and why did they double back? Did they double back because a Lee Wood fight, that show, is a comparatively cheaper show to put on than having to pay 2 separate champions? Is that what this is? The whole thing is strange, because I happen to think that Lee Wood would make more money boxing Mick Conlon for a second time than boxing Leo Santa Cruz. I mean, if the split now is the same as it was, 75-25, Lee Wood don't stand to make much money from this thing. He really doesn't. It's a curious situation. Lots to the imagination, lots of questions that need answers. So overall, I still can't fight this feeling that we shouldn't be here, and Lee Wood shouldn't have to deal with this. He shouldn't have to go through Leo Santa Cruz, because Leo Santa Cruz hasn't officially campaigned as a featherweight in over 3 years. He should have been forced to vacate that title a long time ago, and it's farcical that he's held on to it all this time that he's been allowed to by the WBA. When he won the vacant super featherweight version of the title, he should have been forced to vacate the featherweight version of the title on the spot. This division has stagnated. Leo Santa Cruz hanging on to that WBA title for as long as he has had an adverse effect on this division. More than I think people realize, because Leo never unified with Gary, his PBC stablemate and then WBC champion. Because he had the title, no regular champions could be elevated to full championship status, thus they couldn't unify with anybody either. Khonshu, which then became Lee Wood. Leo Santa Cruz shouldn't be a champion right now. Underneath it all, That's how I feel. The amount of leeway that he's been given by Gilberto Mendoza and the WBA is disgraceful, distasteful, and it's hurt the division. It's hurt the division overall. This past Friday, the last we heard on the Joshua versus Fury situation was that Frank Warren stated Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua talks are now at an issue over who has final say on matters such as commercial deals. Warren said they have suggested appointing an independent mediator, but no response from AJ's side yet. And I've made my feelings crystal clear about this entire fiasco.
None of this is necessary.
The basic idea of a mega match is to see the best guys versus the best guys when they are at their best, and Anthony Joshua, off of 2 consecutive losses, is not at his best. Tyson Fury is well aware of that, and so are his fans, so is Frank Warren, so is everybody involved.
I don't think AJ-Hearn or Anthony Joshua should have entertained Tyson Fury at all.
You know what I think Eddie and Anthony should have did? They should have responded to Tyson Fury's call-out with the video of Tyson Fury from over a year ago after having gotten off the phone with the Prince
of Saudi Arabia. Do you remember when Tyson Fury himself announced that the fight with Anthony Joshua was on?
Hey there, Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King. Got some massive news for you all, guys. I've just got off the phone from Prince Khalid of Saudi Arabia. He told me this fight's a 100% on. August 14th, 2021, summertime. All eyes of the world will be on the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I cannot wait, repeat, cannot wait to smash Anthony Joshua on the biggest stage of all times. This is going to be the biggest sporting event ever to grace the planet Earth. Do not miss it. All eyes on us. Peace out. God bless. See you all in Saudi! Yes! Get it.
If I'm AJ-Hearn, I post up this video. I post up this video and all the quotes from Tyson Fury's team about how the arbitration thing with Wilder wasn't going to be an issue, wasn't going to be a problem. I post all this stuff to remind...
You know what I do? I post Tyson Fury's quotes and Tyson Fury's video from immediately after the Pulev fight in late 2020. It was Tyson Fury that called Anthony Joshua out.
Knowing he was in the thick of that mediation arbitration situation with Wilder. Knowing that was going on. But he calls Anthony Joshua out, and the Anthony Joshua people immediately get to working on the fight with Tyson Fury. They do all the legwork. They do what they have to do.
Fury attests to getting off the phone with the Saudi Arabian prince himself to announce that the fight is on.
It was on a Sunday, only so that the following Monday, the whole goddamn thing can go to hell in a handbasket due to the mediation arbitration with Wilder.
The mediation arbitration that Fury's people said wasn't going to be a problem, wouldn't be an issue.
The Fury people have misled AJ-Hearn and Anthony Joshua and the boxing community before. How do we know that we're not being misled here and now? If I'm AJ-Hearn, I remind people of all of this stuff and make it...
I would have nipped this in the bud early. You're not going to waste our time like you did before.
We're not going to let you, because Anthony Joshua is coming off of 2 consecutive losses, and he needs a rebound fight. What we don't need is you wasting our time. That's what I would have did. That's what I would have said. But AJ-Hearn...
Like I said before, I just feel like Team Joshua is making things way too easy for Team Fury. Much easier than Team Fury would make things for Team Joshua.
I feel like the Fury people know there are only really 2 big money fights left for Tyson Fury at this point. And the Joshua fight is one of them, but it's a less than opportune time for Team Joshua to take on this fight.
That's exactly why he offered it to him. Maybe it's so that he can catch him at a vulnerable state, and if he can't catch him in a vulnerable state, he makes him look bad for rejecting the fight.
All while Germany's own Jean-Claude Van Damme is in the background.
Charr, who's supposed to be standing in Anthony's place if things don't work out.
And to that, AJ-Hearn asks, Charr is a chronic mismatch. Why doesn't Fury fight Joyce?
Oh, granted that it would be a quick turnaround for Joe, but Joe says he's open to it. He says he wants the fight.
I've just opened up Instagram and saw he's calling out Charr again. Hearn told off script on Dubai Eye. He's calling him out like this is a guy who is an actual credible heavyweight. You're the one, Manuel. You've got the guts. This is a guy who's not even rated. It's a chronic mismatch. And if he doesn't want to fight AJ, why doesn't he fight Joyce? He's ready to go, and they have the same promotional company. Joshua is looking to bounce back after suffering back-to-back decision losses to unified heavyweight belt holder Alexander Usyk.
Listen, Charr, Even for Anthony Joshua, who's in the market for a rebound fight, even for him, Manuel Charr would be a piss-poor choice.
Let alone what's supposed to be the unbeaten lineal and WBC heavyweight champion.
And maybe Tyson Fury's entertaining the possibility of fighting a guy like Manuel Charr in December, but what about the people at BT? They have to know that fight don't sell.
You can say whatever you want to say about Anthony Joshua in the in-between time and in the build-up. None of that is going to make Manuel Charr in a fight with him an attractive box office fight.
But Joe Joyce, well, you can sell that. You can.
Oh, yeah. Joyce versus Fury is a box office fight in the United Kingdom, and much easier to sell and much easier to make.
It's easier to sell than a Charr fight and easier to make than a Joshua fight.
You ain't gotta hire no independent mediator to decide who gets the rights for what in a Joshua fight. You can do that in-house, no fuss, no muss, because they're both your fighters, Frank.
Quick turnaround and all. Joe Joyce wants it. Joe Joyce says, if Fury and AJ aren't fighting, then I'll step in.
December 3rd is tight for me, Tyson Fury, but AJ-Hearn, you can give your new best mate, Frank Warren, a call, and I'll take the 17th slot with AJ. Easy fight to make.
Joe Joyce is open to fighting them both.
You know, if Tyson Fury were to fight Joe Joyce in December, the virtue of that is it's an easier fight to make, an easier fight to sell, and that clears up at least one of Usyk's mandatories, so you ain't gotta worry about them. You ain't gotta worry about mandatories impeding the undisputed fight. But that's assuming Fury even prioritizes that fight. That's assuming he really wants it and he's willing to clear the path. If I'm being honest, I don't get the sense that Fury wants to have to work for his money.
Of course he doesn't. He wants an easy, low-risk, tune-up fight.
And you're hounding Anthony Joshua now, a beaten man, at a time when he's coming off of 2 back-to-back losses, the most opportune time to fight him, if you actually want to fight him. And if you don't want to fight him, and all of this is a ruse to sell a Charr fight, well then it's self-explanatory.
You don't want to have to work for your money. Not if you're really trying to fight Manuel Charr.
And what all of this has been was a publicity stunt to try and help sell that fight.
Don't actually know what's going to happen here. Don't actually know
how it's going to end, because it all really does feel like a high-stakes game of chicken. Who will decide to walk away?
It feels like they're playing a blame game. A game of who's going to take the blame for when this fight collapses.
Just in keeping with the theme of all things heavyweight, soul-destroying machine. Former champion, now retiree, Tony Bellew claims no one in the heavyweight division could KO Joe Joyce apart from Deontay Wilder and maybe Anthony Joshua. One thing that became clear as the fight went on, the fight with Joseph Parker, is that Joyce has the best chin in the heavyweight division, as he ate punch after punch and was unfazed by Parker's power, and this impressed former cruiserweight champion Tony Bellew. Joe Joyce's best attribute is his durability, and that came through once again. Bellew told TalkSport he outlasts his man, and his durability is on another level. I've never seen anything like it, but he also has the fitness, dexterity, and calmness to see through the storms, and that's what he's done. That's what he did with Daniel Dubois, weathering several hard shots.
You know, I feel like he actually got hit and took more hard shots in the Dubois fight than the Parker fight.
I feel like Daniel Dubois was doing more offensively to take it to Joe Joyce, who was unfazed and undeterred, as opposed to Joseph Parker, who only occasionally got through with some hard shots, only occasionally landed something big.
Because remember, Joseph Parker spent large portions of that fight laying off and trying to stay on the outside of Joe Joyce's punches, and that didn't help him,
but that's what he did.
Daniel did land more.
I feel like Daniel showed us more offensively, landed more than Joseph Parker did. In any event, the both of those fights are a testament to Joe Joyce's poise and his durability.
So do you really think he has the best chin, the best punch resistance in all of boxing? Is it a bit too soon to make statements like that?
There's definitely an argument there, because the defining characteristic of a Joe Joyce fight, whether you're talking about the Dubois fight or the Jennings fight or the Takam fight or the Hammer fight or the Parker fight, the defining characteristic is that the other guy, he usually gets through with something hard. And no matter who the other guy is, Joe Joyce remains undeterred,
unfazed.
Bryant Jennings landed a lot of right hands. Christian Hammer, more recently, he was connecting with some big looping rights, looping shots. They didn't bother Joe.
Daniel Dubois' punches didn't faze Joe. Joe's last fight, Joseph Parker, whenever he did get through with something, yeah, it looked like it landed hard whenever he did land something. But, none of it bothered Joe. And I guess that's where the argument comes from, that the defining characteristic of a Joe Joyce fight is he's going to get hit, he's going to get hit clean, he's going to get hit hard, and he won't stop coming after you.
But those guys that Joe Joyce has fought so far, they ain't Deontay Wilder. They ain't Anthony Joshua.
As much as people would like to see just how much Joe Joyce can withstand, it doesn't behoove him to take a clean right hand from Deontay Wilder, as much as people want to see that experiment. What's stronger, Joe Joyce's chin, his punch resistance, or Deontay Wilder's right hand? It doesn't behoove Joe Joyce to find out.
And you know what? Because of how many times guys land on him, if he were to fight Wilder...
In the first Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury fight, Tyson Fury wasn't pressuring Deontay the way he did in the last two fights of the trilogy. In the first fight, he boxed him, sticking and moving, did more moving and punching in the first fight than he did in the last two, but he still got caught. Wilder still landed on him. And Tyson Fury is characteristically more herky-jerky and fidgety, more elusive than Joe Joyce. But Wilder still landed.
The amount of clean punches that Joe Joyce takes in a fight,
It's a safe bet that Deontay could land on Joe Joyce. I don't know that those two guys are ever going to fight, though, so it's neither here nor there.
with Anthony's a strong finisher. He is. Most of his fights he won by way of knockout, but against Joe,
I don't get the sense that he'd be looking for a knockout. I get the sense that he'd box him. He'd use his amateur pedigree, his length and his height, and his speed advantage, because he does have a speed advantage over Joe. I get the sense that he wouldn't go in there looking for a knockout. He'd go in there looking to keep him at arm's length, box him from the outside, and win a points decision.
stick him. Maybe you land the occasional right hand, but you don't overcommit and you don't stay in one spot too long.
The Tyson Fury versus Joe Joyce fight, that's even more intriguing. Tyson Fury's known to have great powers of recovery and good punch resistance as well, though he's hit the canvas a lot of times, 6 times throughout the course of his career.
It'd be a hard night's work for Tyson Fury too,
I think it would, because Joe Joyce seems a very hard man to discourage.
I don't envy his next opponent, I'll tell you that.